Toni in the studio. Challenge Unlimited. April is Autism Acceptance Month, correct? Stephanie, Toni, how are we doing today?
Great. How about yourself?
Well, this last time we had you on the show, I had no lower third. I had a drinking problem. I was spilling everything I was drinking on me. It was like, the airplane joke because I don't have anything that's original. And, and here we are now. But this is a really great conversation. Stephanie, fill me in on Autism Acceptance Month because this is different than awareness.
Right. And I think that's really the reason we're here today. When we were here last month, we talked a lot about awareness days and why awareness days are important, educating the community. I think by this time, if you don't realize that autism spectrum disorder exists, you must be living under a rock.
Right.
1 in 36 kids is diagnosed with this in this country. So it's a common thing for parents and communities to have to, just kind of realize that everybody's different. And that's really the theme this month is celebrating differences. We basically, at Challenge Unlimited, we've basically kind of brought to the forefront that it's okay to be different.
Yeah, 100%.
Atypically speaking, we've always kind of put a standard on people that you have to think and learn a certain way. And I think what, autism acceptance is about is just realizing that we really are all different. We all learn differently. We all have different abilities. And, from where we stand, is approximately 60% of autistic adults are unemployed or underemployed. Mm-hmm. And so I think, that's a big point to be discussed. And I brought Toni with me today. Toni's a member of the community, a volunteer for Challenge Unlimited.
Really cool.
And the parent of a child with autism spectrum disorder. So I thought, who better to speak to this? I don't have any kids. All my kids have fur. So, who better to speak to this than a parent to really explain why accepting the difference in individuals, teaching children to accept the difference that they have amongst their classmates or people they interact with, and just really getting the word out there that people want to be accepted. Toni recently volunteered for us, and that was the thing. We were on the phone last night, and we were kind of talking about, I've got to do this podcast in the morning, and like I told you, I feel like I'm always the only one talking if I don't bring somebody with me. So, Toni has no problem with a microphone. She's a DJ professionally.
Right.
So, when we were talking about it, she was talking about her experience volunteering with us. And, just how, I think we were both in tears when she read the thank you card she's got with her from the individuals that we, serve at our skills training centers. So, all of our programs have a pretty significant percentage of individuals with autism. So that's just, kind of why I brought her with me. And I figured she could definitely add a perspective that I can't.
Right.
So.
Well, and let's dive right into that, Toni. Number one, good to see you again. Toni and I might have known each other a time or two.
In a former life, maybe.
Former life, Toni, I really appreciate you coming on today. And especially whenever you're talking about something like this, that's a very personal matter to you because it gives the audience better insights than anyone ever could. And let's just start off by going through the day-to-day life that you experience with your child who's on, the autism spectrum, and take us through the typical, Monday through Sunday or Sunday through Sunday life.
Well, that's the thing with autism is that everyday life is in constant motion.
Yeah.
Routine is important, but it could change day to day what her interest in that day is. Mm-hmm. And because autism, and we were just speaking of this, I watched a reel recently where a young lady actually was speaking on her own diagnosis and life and autism in general. And autism is not a linear diagnosis. It is very much a color wheel. And every person with autism doesn't have the same colors.
Right.
It could be red, orange, yellow, and the next person could be blue, indigo, green. So, there's no perfect way to go, what does this look like for autism people? Because there isn't.
Right.
Every diagnosis is different. Every situation is unique. And everyone has unique abilities.
Well, and whenever we're going through school life and you're going through and navigating that, especially at a younger age, like a daycare or even a preschool, as we're getting ready for that next jump, how was there difficulty in trying to?
We're still in that.
Still in that limbo.
But the beautiful thing about that is that our programs and our schools have come a long way.
That's good to hear.
You know, I feel like even just this year for her, there have been like, you know, it's trial and error. Like, if, okay, this didn't fit. And so actually, literally just 2 weeks ago, we moved into a new classroom because it was a better situation for her. And she has responded better. And so you have to find that place where they're comfortable, where they feel secure, you know, as a kid. Because when you're a kid, you know, she's a child, you know, she's 12.
Right.
So, I mean, and she is still very much a little girl at heart. So it's like she needs to feel not just, you know, happy, but secure where she's at, comfortable where she's at, so that she can do the programming that they have provided for her to learn.
And one thing I wanted to ask, though, is there has to be so much involvement on the parents' side of things whenever you're navigating this.
You
Otherwise,
have to
it won't.
advocate for your kids.
Absolutely.
You do.
But when you're talking, you know, I just think about the children that maybe don't have that advocate in their life, you know, because there are some children out there that I can only imagine that don't have a parent like you, Toni, that's advocating and trying to find what works and doing those things, and just hearing how dedicated you are in those conversations.
Well, and I think a lot of parents sometimes feel that, you know, it's overwhelming. Like,
100%.
You know, something we said recently
100%.
is that you don't, you know, when your child is born, you don't know that you're an autism parent. You become an autism parent when that diagnosis occurs. And there is no handbook to tell you how to parent.
No parent gets a handbook.
Yeah,
but this is an
to
added
navigate
challenge,
these
right?
waters, you know. And I think that that's one of the beautiful things about Challenge Unlimited. Mind you, that they are for adults, but the thing is that when you're an autism parent, you're not just thinking about today.
No, 100%. What now? Take me through what you're thinking about, though. How far out are you thinking? You know, for your daughter on.
I mean, till the end of you know, whatever that situation is, my time, whatever. Because and that's the beautiful thing about programs like Challenge is that I can sit at a 12-year-old situation and go, okay, right now I can do, and I'm there and I can help. But what happens when the day comes that I'm no longer physically able or mentally able, or, you know, unfortunately, we all have a timestamp.
Absolutely.
And what happens to our children who need advocacy after our ability to help them? And that's where places like Challenge step in, you know, and that is a comforting, you know, experience as a parent, because when you don't know that something like Challenge exists, then you have to go, what's going to happen to them? Will they ever have a future? And places like Challenge provide a future. Well,
and then it's like you said, the uncertainty and the not knowing is probably the scariest part of that whole conversation.
Sure.
You're grabbing at straws, but when you have a backbone like Challenge Unlimited, you're right. I mean, you know that at least we have a blueprint and some foundation going forward if something ever does occur. And it's you know, not to say people go, well, that's kind of sad to think about, but this is the reality.
Well, and parents, I think, feel very alone.
Yeah.
And so Challenge also, that it lets you know that there are people living in this world that care about the future of other people.
Well, can I ask you about the interactions with her fellow students at the school and what those look like? Because, you know, I remember when I was in school at St. Mary's, the big push was it doesn't matter what, you know, color hair you have, what skin color you are. There was a big push on being neighbors, being friends with everybody, and understanding differences. Do you still see that in the school level here? I
do, and I think that if they really are teaching kids more, especially like there's even, you know, parent conferences on, you know, we talk about bullying and we talk about things like this, and I think that it's very important in the school district that, you know, we're teaching acceptance on that level, you know. And I think that my daughter has been blessed to have a circle of people around her that were of atypical development that have made her feel accepted. And, you know, but this is why I urge parents with children with any special needs, stay involved. You know, and look for community organizations, look for groups, because they exist. And you don't have to hide because of a difference.
Well, and you said something earlier that's so important about being alone, or feeling alone sometimes. Parents could in this situation. But when you have opportunities to go like you've done and volunteer for Challenge Unlimited, I'm sure your support group grows because you're, meeting similar individuals or individuals facing similar circumstances. And it's a little bit easier to have conversation with somebody that's going through a similar avenue you are.
Well, and even beyond parenting, individuals that fall on the autism spectrum, it is so important for inclusive behavior because depression and isolation happens to the individuals, let alone the parents, and they, having worked the Christmas party, that was something that when I got these thank you cards from Stephanie, we were both very emotional going over them because the common theme between all these cards were just thank you for coming and having a good time with us and playing great music and not being treated differently.
Thanks for being our friend.
Pretty much.
That's what it was. So that's what I'm getting just from the brief kind of synopsis there, and that goes so much more because I think sometimes, and this is just me, and I don't know you guys both live this more than I do, but I think sometimes people over guess and I think put over exertions into how we communicate with somebody that's on the spectrum sometimes and kind of treat them differently without meaning to treat them differently. And, to be able just to be a friend, to go out there and just, be a everyday, average Joe, just like, everyone in that group that day, that's important. Because sometimes I don't know if, it's me thinking we're kind of talking down to somebody that's on the spectrum because we're trying to, make it easier for, them to understand. You get what I'm saying?
We make assumptions.
Yeah,
we
that's
absolutely,
what I'm kind of meaning by that.
And that's part of the thing with acceptance, I think. I like that she brought up a color wheel. I think a lot of times, and historically there's been, we've learned a lot about autism spectrum disorder in the last 20 years, but we have a lot more to learn.
Tons, yeah.
The initial diagnoses, and it was a recognized disease in 1911. We don't even want to talk about the phases it went through until Autism Awareness Day became a thing in the 60s.
Right.
And then, now that as we learn more, I think we realize, like you said, it's not a linear situation. It's very much that every individual is different. And I think if we start to realize, we were talking too about nonverbal autism is a big thing that we see a lot of. But just because someone's nonverbal does not mean they do not understand and process and feel. And I think that's kind of speaking to what you're saying as far as, you can talk to me just like you talk to anybody else. I just may not be able to vocalize back at you. But, we have individuals that work with, assisted devices to be able to speak to people. We live in a world where technology is a beautiful thing when it comes to this, as far as, especially when you talk about learning. Right. We do with our employment services positions, when we look at what job carving can do for individuals who have previously had real struggles sustaining employment. But, I was telling Toni earlier, what do Steve Jobs and Dan Aykroyd and Tim Burton and all of these people have Elon Musk have in common?
Yeah, they have.
They're all on the autism spectrum.
Well, and that's what I was going to kind of start with is, so many times I think, and you and I have talked about this, folks not being diagnosed and, you go your whole life without knowing in the 70s and 80s if you're growing up in that Gen X or, even a little bit older generations. And all the brilliant people, and all the brilliant entertainers and artists and actors, you name it, athletes, that were on the spectrum and they just were never diagnosed. And, no one ever thought of them any differently. It was just, he's a little bit more colorful than, someone else, X, Y, and Z. But it was never a demonstrative thing. It was celebrated. It was celebrating their uniqueness.
Right.
But, that's a very important conversation, I think, that needs to be had in the public more often is because, we can talk about celebrities and that's great. But what about the guy on the street?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The common day people that live in our communities that are underdiagnosed and struggle at jobs, struggle in their life. And is it because they haven't realized that the struggle is because they have a processing disorder?
Right. 100%.
And that there's nothing wrong with that, but there are therapies and ways to help you cope and be in society and places like Challenge that can help you find work and
community.
And I feel like people need to know if you're feeling, isolated like that, have that conversation, with your medical professional so that you can go to these places with that diagnosis and go, I need help. You know, because you can fit into society. You are important. You do matter.
100%. 100%. Do you guys got a moment to stick around?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
10:30? Oh, not 10:30. 10:28. I got to do my job correctly. You can't just guess over here, Tony. You got to look at the clock and read the clock, you know. I got in trouble in radio for doing that once. 10:28. A little bit of change on this 11th day of April. Our daily show on Roku TV, RiverBender.com continues. Get over here right after this.
I set the thermostat so my house would be warm when I got home from work, but the kitchen is still cool.
At Barrett Heating and Cooling, we stand behind every Linux system we sell.
My dealer said he'd take care of everything.
At Barrett Heating and Cooling, we understand everyone wants prompt, professional service.
Turns out it wasn't my furnace after all, just a little something blocking the vent.
Pretty smart dog if you ask me. For service you can count on, call Barrett Heating and Cooling.
Lennox. Innovation never felt so good.
You won't find a better health club than Nautilus Fitness Center. More cardio, more free weights and equipment, more classes, a swimming pool, and more. If you're serious about your health and want to make a change, then stop thinking about it and visit Nautilus Fitness Center on Industrial Drive in Alton. Don't fall for the hype you get from the other health clubs. Nautilus is the Riverbend's premier health club. Has been for years and will be for years to come. Get to Nautilus Fitness Center and get started on a healthier new you.
DJ Mike Keith.
This is where I am today. Let me show you where I started.
Life's better when you're under our roof. That's because our expert agents will make you feel totally protected with the right auto and home coverage at the right price. Also, you can enjoy the dreams you worked so hard to achieve. American Family Insurance.
For the biggest selection of pre-owned cars, trucks, and SUVs in the Riverbend, visit AltonToyota.com or stop by their location on the Homer Adams Parkway in Alton. Winner of the prestigious President's Award, Munganast Burkhardt Alton Toyota knows how to treat their customers, and they will help you find the vehicle that is perfect for you. For years, Munganast Toyota has been a fixture in the Riverbend, and now Munganast Burkhardt carries the tradition. New name, but the same great service you've come to expect.
You're listening to Our Daily Show with CJ Nasello on RiverBender.com.
Have a lot of fun, putting trouble on the run. Man, you find the hole in yon, twisting the night away. Yeah, twisting. Everybody's feeling great. They're twisting.
You're right. 10:31. Welcome back. 11th day of April. It's a Thursday morning in downtown Alton, throughout the Riverbend. I hope. If not, we'd be in trouble. You know, I heard someone say that the other day. It's the 11th. They said it was Monday. So whatever Monday was, it's April the 9th all throughout the country. Well, I hope to hell it is. You know. Didn't know we had a.
Well, the eclipse has thrown everybody off this week, right?
Oh,
it's a
my
crazy
God.
world.
It's something.
Worse than a full moon.
I know, right?
It's something
Right.
else. Well, and as we're getting back and talking about Autism Acceptance Month, I wanted to talk with you a little bit more, Stephanie, of what you just mentioned during the commercial break with Madison County Training and Development and their partnership with Challenge Unlimited on having a jobs coach. Is that correct? Did I hear you right?
Yeah. You know, I think something that, while we may not have any specific events going on for Autism Awareness Month, I think the part of Challenge is that is what we're doing all year long, right? And we've recently partnered with Holly's House of Hope. It's a clothing resale and boutique in Highland. And it's kind of a long story, but to keep it short, you know, they're the parents of a girl who wanted to work in a clothing store. That was her dream. And, you know, she was excited about it, and rather than, you know, question how do we get there, they just said, okay, we're going to start this organization. And so they partnered with some community members who, you know, had found them a space and worked with Madison County Training and Development. And so that's where Challenge comes in. You know, with that partnership, we're able to provide a job coach for the individuals working there and being trained. And, I think those partnerships are really part of what drives, it's kind of like Toni says, people knowing that we're here, not only knowing that we're here, but when we're talking about, let's say, kids and parents' fears and what the future looks like, these training and development opportunities, allow people to thrive.
Yeah.
And that's in anything. So, it's a beautiful partnership. And, I know they just had their gala and they just had another apprenticeship graduate. So it's just something I think we're really proud of.
What's the moment look like whenever that individual finds their purpose in what they're doing? Because what I mean by that is, the entire life, you're kind of given the short end of the stick and looked over on so many things. But whenever you have a Challenge Unlimited or anybody working with you to develop a skill, once they find that skill and find, that motion, what's that moment like when they have their thing to do?
Well, what's amazing is I get those reminders constantly, luckily, because I run the social media and I'm the one that's, comms for everything. We've got, particularly, I can think of one gentleman that has been with a GSA contract that we work on for about 10. I think he just celebrated his 11-year anniversary.
That's cool. That is amazing.
He was commenting on how grateful he is for the opportunity, how proud he is of, his work. And when he was getting it, what happened was he posted it on Facebook and he tagged Challenge.
Oh,
so
there you go.
I was like, I have to share this, not only that, but congratulations on your work anniversary, Matt, and he was like, I'm hoping for another decade, more decades to come, So, I think it's empowering.
It goes back to what we've talked about months ago, that your guys' employees or the individuals you develop are some of the most beneficial for a potential company. To be at a place for 11 years is an unknown thing anymore.
It is.
And it's not just one individual. You have folks all over that are committed to their workplaces and doing some really good work for the companies.
I just finished our annual report, and 68% of the people we employ through Challenge have some sort of disability.
Wow.
It's staggering that there's a 60% under or unemployment rate for these people, but then we don't have a hard time with this.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Right.
We've been doing it for 60 years,
Right.
To kind of Toni's point about being parents and looking forward. We get a lot of outreach, of parents with 15, 16-year-old kids who are thinking, okay, we're thinking about the future. Like, when my child graduates from high school, what are we going to do? And there's a process for that. They have to go through referrals from vocational rehabilitation and, in order to get to us and take advantage of our services. So there's a long planning process to it.
But which is why it's important to, even at 12,
right,
start looking into these programs
right
now.
On. You have to. You have to.
Yeah, and putting in the applications early. You don't wait till they're 18, because you have to build these skills to get to that place,
Toni, is there a way, and I hate to put you on the spot, but, you have, just by hearing you talk, you have so many insights to this and knowing, who to...
Now I brought her with me.
Yeah, no kidding. Would you ever be open to a parent that maybe is going through this with their child and needs help and guidance to point them in the right direction, or you stay away
absolutely. No, you have to talk as parents, and you have to be there for other parents, because some people that are going through it, and it's not new, or you've been there for a while, you have good days and bad days.
Yep.
And you have struggles, and sometimes you find yourself in situations where you maybe have been isolated for a while and you don't know how to get back involved. And so this is why I'm always pushing for inclusion, and I take my daughter everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell people. I take her everywhere. It doesn't matter. We go to the zoo. She goes to church on Sunday.
She went to a Pink Floyd cover band concert. We were just talking about that the other day.
On steroids.
Yeah.
So, we'll name drop.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
But because it's not about them changing for society. It is about society allowing them to be themselves.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, Toni.
That guy who goes to a concert and is wearing his headphones, he's just doing that because it's a little too loud.
Yeah.
Right.
But he's still enjoying the music and the show,
Right. Well, there's so many of those circumstances, and I think that, I don't know where we're at in society now, but it seems like the older adults, out there, not the children, but some of the older adults are having kind of an issue with the inclusivity of someone on the spectrum. That's kind of my thought on it.
Hit and miss. You
think so?
Yeah.
I'll give you a short version of a personal experience. We took Polly to the Fox when she was 5 to see Lion King.
Okay.
The older folks around us thought she was beautiful. They loved it. The young girl that was sitting in front of us, probably in her early 20s, Polly hit her seat a couple times with her feet.
Oh, no.
And not because she was kicking her seat, but because she was little and short-legged. And the girl got mad and complained to the usher and wanted us moved.
Are you serious?
At Lion King.
Right, this is a kid's show, right?
But the important part of this story is that you have to understand that everywhere you go, people are going to be different.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing to me about autism, what changed me the most, and that I'm grateful for, is it reminded me to slow down. We live in a very fast world where we want instant gratification and we want
problems fixed right now.
Unrealistic expectations. And autism doesn't allow for that.
You know what? And that's not the same point, but similar too, because I was, and we all go through things in life, but I was going through a kind of a time during the show when it first started getting going, and I was running around 100 miles an hour, and I, riding, people's asses on West Delmar to get to spots, and then you realize no one's more important than anyone else. We're all of the same importance. We all have the same places to be. Maybe you have to go get your dog to a grooming appointment, or maybe your child to a doctor's appointment. We're all just going the same pace. We don't need to be better or faster than anybody. We can just be going to the same spots together as a kind of a uniformed pendulum instead of just this crazy, hectic jerking, we got to be first. We can be the tide.
Well, and I think that when you slow down and you appreciate differences, when you appreciate the life around you, then suddenly you don't feel as stressed and as pressed to, you said, what does it look like on the parent side of that? Even if it's just recently she corroborated words like restaurant, cafe, understanding that these are all places you go to eat.
Yeah.
You celebrate that. You celebrate
100%.
that hard.
100%.
Because any form of her being able to understand the world around her, you celebrate that.
And Toni, you said something during the break, and I know we've been talking for a while, but I wanted to hit on this because it's so important. And that was about a birthday party. And you invited some individuals that have
her classmates.
Yes.
And there were several parents that reached out and were emotionally grateful that we invited their kids because they don't get invited to things.
Yeah.
And that really, and actually Stephanie was one of the people I called, and it really hurt me in a way that it was like, again, because we have been blessed to have friends that have included us, to know that there are people who are not being included. And, so I told these parents, whatever, you're coming. We had sensory friendly environment. We had sensory toys, and people on the autism spectrum, if you will, whatever your condition is, it doesn't affect. You're gonna stim. That's okay. We stim too. I mean, if you need the lights turned down, that's okay. We don't mind that. You're gonna wear your headphones. That's okay.
Well, we talked last month when I was here with Michelle about just medical environments and what we can do in those situations, and that's a very specific kind of circumstance, and again, scary for everybody. But I think what Tony's and you are both kind of getting to is that it's about everywhere, and it's what Michelle had said last month when we were here
100%.
that we can't change entire systems, but we can make a difference in the lives that we touch every day. And if a minor accommodation is all somebody needs, then
right.
And I think the public is doing better about that. I mean, for the zoo, for example, they have sensory-friendly areas when they have their glow thing that they're doing.
Yeah,
I heard they're wonderful with a lot of accommodations.
The St. Louis Aquarium actually has, if you need to come in a different door where it's not as crowded, they have a whole different route you can take to get into the aquarium with quiet spaces and whatnot if you need to have a sensory moment, So, I mean, there's a lot of places that are really recognizing the importance of
it's getting better. There's a lot of hope.
Yeah,
I think.
And it's good whenever you see those things start to develop, but it also gives you a morale boost to keep going and keep pushing and keep letting the world know, hey, we need these accommodations. There's nothing wrong with that. Now I'm going to get I don't think I'll get in trouble for this. I don't.
I'll get in trouble, he says.
I always pitch ideas on this show. Why not? We're here anyway. I think it would be so cool if there was an opportunity for the community center to do a dance for children that maybe are on the spectrum that don't have that opportunity and have more of a really cool setting, like.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? I think that would be wonderful.
Tell iMerge to give me a call.
That's what I'm saying. I think I might have to set that up. I mean, just what you said, though. I mean, everyone should have the experiences a child should experience, like going to the playground, having play dates with your friends.
Well, and even an adult, because, we
right.
do things like,
100%.
With our residential options program, a lot of times, if we can't host one ourselves, because obviously it's always a resource thing, right? But, there are adult proms for these reasons.
Well, I was going to say I'm actually getting ready to do one at the end of the month.
Are you really?
Yeah, like I said, she volunteers.
At William Budell. So,
really? A prom?
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah. So, there's but it is important, that kind of thing, because just because you have autism doesn't mean you don't like to have fun.
Well, we talk a lot about integration, and then that's great that we want to integrate, but I think people need to be engaged in situations where they understand that integration, before they even get to that point.
And as we've been talking here before we say goodbye for now, Toni, I have one final thought for you, and this is just for any parent out there with a younger one that's maybe in elementary school or maybe a middle school, you name it. What for a child, what's the best way just to let that individual, maybe it's a classmate of theirs that they haven't talked to yet because they're nervous or don't know how to communicate because of the spectrum, being on the spectrum. What's the best way just to start that friendship, start that bond?
Well, sometimes, that's a complicated question simply because everybody is different.
Yep. Right. Yeah.
But the more important thing is teaching the other people to be accepting. Like it's okay if you just want to sit next to me and play what you're playing or look on your phone, but that we're together. Right. And maybe you say to that person, oh, what are you interested in? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even if they don't really show you, you still go, that's cool. You let them know that it's okay that they are who they are.
That's what I was meaning by that.
Yeah, and I think that it's about allowing them to be themselves. Mm-hmm. And parents need to understand it's okay if these children are eating differently. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. As long as you're taking care of them, loving them, who they are, there's no such thing as, screen time, parents. It's all okay.
Yeah, you're right.
You have to let them be who they are and love them for who they are.
100%. Well, this was really insightful, Toni, and I'm really grateful that you came on the show today
to share,
for having me. Share us. Especially when it's something that you experience and personally, handle each and every day. That's the best insight we could ever give. And Stephanie, thank you so much for setting this up again. I always love talking about Challenge Unlimited and all the great things you're doing. When's the next time you're coming on?
Oh, I'm sure I'll be back. I'll be back within a month.
That's
I'm sure I got something else I need to spread the word about.
Normally, I see a different booking request come in like the day before, and I haven't yet, so I'm just kind of waiting. Don't leave me hanging, Stephanie. I love talking Challenge Unlimited.
I would encourage parents to look up Challenge Unlimited. Even if your children...
www.cuinc.org.
It's the new vamp up coming soon.
It is.
Even if your children are younger, though, so that you can see what the opportunities are available that are out there.
Absolutely.
And what we're doing in the community.
And what we can do to get you referred early.
100%.
Those support systems are there, but like Toni said, you got to navigate it. It can be intimidating to some, but the sooner you reach out, the sooner we can get you referred to a vocational rehab or a DOORS program. And I won't get too technical with that stuff, but there are things that are available that, just give us a call, send us a contact form. We can, if we can't help you right away, we can put you in contact.
Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah. 100%. That's how we know. That's how we find out what we need to do. Sometimes you're 100% right. At 1047 for more information, cuinc.org. That's cuinc.org. That was off the top of my head, Toni. That's pretty impressive. We'll take a quick break. 1047. We wrap up this Thursday morning right after this on RiverBender.com.